at various points in our lives, different things drive us, right? Or at least, we're programmed to be driven by certain things, different things. And, you touched on growing up. You grew up Jehovah's Witness. And so, there was a certain, let's call it program, if you will, and not exclusive to Jehovah's Witness, but to all of us. We all have a different program that we run. Okay. And, certain things drove that, ergo, or thereby driving you. What drives you now, after having that meeting, after performing in Cali, after, reading the book, The Alchemist? I'm sure no one ever reads that book. I did, and, it remains the same. Let's talk a little bit about what are you doing right now and what drives that, or what drives you to drive that, and we'll get back to the Cali story. I'm not, oh man, keep going.
I like how you're pulling the lessons from the chapters of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important, right? I never want to tell my story because I'm like, look what I did. I went to Cali and I did it. It's like, no, like you just said, the programming is a theme, right? Like, I want people to understand the themes of what I'm saying. It's not like my story will just help you internalize the emotions around yours, right? Mm-hmm. And connect with what I went through while you went through it. Mm-hmm. And I think to that point, that's largely what I move for now. Mm-hmm. I realize that my ego, as with anyone's, will always be easily satisfied. For a long time, I was moving because I was a kid that was raised a Jehovah's Witness, that got kicked out, and that was the only value that I knew, was being a Jehovah's Witness. So I went to go have value in the world, but that trying to replace what I had from my family was making me seek like affirmation and validation unhealthily. Mm-hmm. And so that was what I was moving for then. Going to Cali was about doing something so insurmountable that I could reconcile my past, that I could achieve something so grand that it would erase all the mediocrity that I had on the trail of what I was doing. That all of a sudden I would be the superhero because I did something that no one else could do. So my desire and will to go to Cali, while valiant, was very much ego driven. It wasn't for anyone else. That was
came back different. It's just a hero's
left
journey.
Bruce Wayne, came back Batman.
Right? Went down in the cave, right? Or if you're Hercules, you had to tie the Gordian knot, right?
But most people don't talk about, like, you get your ass whooped during that process.
Of
like,
course.
You watch Batman, you watch when he was getting trained by, like, Ra's al Ghul? Boy, that's different, Like, that's not no cakewalk. People, that's what this, and I'm starting to understand why people don't really shoot for greatness. Mm-hmm. Because there's a certain, you have to go through a process of, I won't say like atonement, right? But you got to be broken down to be built back up. This is why people go into fraternities and sororities and they thrive, because they are reset as humans.
Absolutely.
You are grinded to a point where your psyche is formable again.
Right.
Where you're able to take in new information and you desire it because you're stripped of all of the value that you thought you had. Exactly.
There you go. Right. And I can personally relate to that, my brother, because, I currently serve the Army, mm-hmm. right? And that was central to training, inception, right? It's the basic training of it.
They got to break you first.
That's the goal of it, right? But it's not exclusive to the Army. You went through it. It just manifests in different ways. And, there's a reason why only 1% of the country serves, or there's a reason why that number 1% keeps coming back again and again and again. Now, there are also some negative aspects to the number 1%, but
there's negative aspects to programming in general.
There you go. So the process of being stripped down, right, and then being built back up, it's something that I think is a part of any hero's or heroine's journey, period. But I'm not even going to say but I digress, because I meant what I said.
Talk heavy, King.
Carry on.
But that segues great to why I do what I do right now. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I understand that we all have our peaks and valleys.
Right.
I understand that because of the way that I have, the scope of life. I understand that the scope of life that I have, mm-hmm. and the endeavors that I have take me on many peaks and valleys,
Right.
frequently.
Mm-hmm.
I share my journey because I understand that other people are simultaneously doing the same thing. So it's like I chart the water so we can go farther.
Now, speaking of charting the waters, are we going to talk a little bit about the Genius Lab? Because, you know, waters are charted in this thing called the Genius Lab. And I just want everyone to know just a little bit about what this multidimensional of a brother is doing right now, right? I obviously, for those of you who know, I have a cybersecurity company, right? And it's the first of its kind because, number one, as a black man in technology, in the tech space, you are a unicorn, really. And then as a black man in the tech space who owns his own company,
intellectual property,
right, intellectual property, that's another thing altogether. And so, but I say that to say you have two unicorns, essentially, black unicorns, sitting across the table from each other, right? But we want to hear more about you because what you are doing via the Genius Lab, man, my gosh.
It's crazy because this so right now,
yeah.
Most people haven't heard of it. There, you know, some close people have heard of it, some
right.
of my friends, but
you know, I give away too much deeds because now we don't know who signed the NDA or not. But
you know, but essentially, the Genius Lab is a culmination of the way that I learned.
Okay, now yeah,
it's when I reference the Ra's al Ghul and the Batman situation, like that's my ideal learning situation. Don't baby me. Don't. I want you to teach me.
Yeah.
And by teaching me, that means full immersion to me. And so I realized that having a place to create, period, is a premium, especially now as we move in the world. And I had this vision 3 to 5 years ago. And it's just developed over time as a result of going through what I've gone through, being in the media space, seeing what people in the media realm need. The Genius Lab is a culmination of a necessity to create and to protect what's created, as well as to curate a space where you can create freely. And so for me personally, you know, we're in a studio, and I think that if people pay attention, you know, they have record labels before. And we're moving into content labels. So if you have a specific type of individual and all of you guys are really great in the auto space and you know exactly how to draw cars, animate cars, do voiceovers for cars, you mean to tell me you couldn't just go get a house full of 4 or 5 of y'all and y'all go after, you know, some of the top automakers or like try to get with Carvana or Auto Trader? That's just one thought just off the top of my head right now. For me personally, I'm in the technology, the STEM, socioeconomic sector. So the Genius Lab to me is a place to curate intellectual property that is then stored, aggregated, made accessible, and monetized. Because that's what's been missing. We're in the age of apprenticeship, learning, execution, and economic reshaping. So I, as a creator, I am a poet, right? This is how this started. My brain functions like, what would happen if Martin Luther King had a podcast? I was raised with the influences of like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. So I am a creator of intellectual property. I produce digital content and help people build brands. The Genius Lab is a place where I will do that, and I will help other people learn how to do that as well. And then we'll have an army of people who are creating socioeconomic development, intellectual property.
Now, this is critical, crucial moves, right? And I say that, I preface with that to say, now more than ever, it is super important for you to own your masters.
Point blank.
Right? Period. And so, what do I mean by that? Well, what are your masters in this creative age? Your ideas, right? The methodology, the vehicles, the various vehicles through which the ideas actually accomplish their end.
What adds value to ideas?
Right?
Execution.
Right? The process, right?
And
right?
the process
story.
Right. And if the process is proven by the story.
There you go. So,
this is where the intersection of
see how it happened. But we say all that to say, you and I, we are currently working together because, you have to be. What good are your masters if you can't protect them? If you don't protect them, if you don't own them?
What good are your masters if they're not procuring resources or they aren't resources themselves?
Precisely.
We're not talking about storing just for like museum type of thing, right? I mean, technically we could be, right? But because the museums is a model, right? That's something that for people to come see, learn from, and engage with.
Precisely.
Ideas.
Precisely.
But in order to do that, it has to have value at the inception.
Absolutely. Right? Start with the end in mind. We had that conversation earlier.
And I think that's where, I think to make it really simple, right? Although we're talking about intellectual property, socioeconomic development, what we're talking about is having a craft and being able to turn that craft into a tangible asset that then deserves to be protected.
Precisely.
And when you say deserve, it's like this is something that humanity needs. You understand? And when we say processes and systems, it's like, is this a system and process that we need? I'm pretty sure if you went and you tackled online learning right now as something that needed systems, you can make a lot of money.
Sure.
Whoever utilizes that after hearing this, just hit me up later on. Like, and you don't even have to give me any money. I would just like you to like donate to like some type of what. But what I'm saying is like that portal. If you revolutionize online learning right now in a time where people are overwhelmed by it and feel like the resources don't meet the demands of what it's needed, there's a gap there. And if you fill the gap with something that is useful, that is called valuable.
Sure.
And in the process of how you do that
Sure.
is what we're talking about.
Sure.
Protecting that and storing that.
Protecting it and storing it.
And that became important to me simply because like I said, when you have like that, the reason that statement became so important to me, what would happen if Martin Luther King had a podcast, is because it gave my vision a uniform. It gave me an opportunity.
Break that down. You used the word uniform, and you use the word uniform a lot, but I'm not sure that everyone follows what that means. It gave your vision a uniform. What does that mean?
I feel like when you go to work, right? If you go to a job that requires a uniform, they have certain, like when I worked at Chick-fil-A, you couldn't have facial hair. You had to tuck your shirt in. You had to wear black non-slip shoes. You had to wear, the non-drip pant or whatever it was. Like, what is that for your vision? Like, and it could be something as simple as like, I really like writing with this pencil, and because this pencil moves fluidly, my poems just feel better when I'm writing them. It doesn't have to be a super deep thing, right? Where it's actually doing that, but just I like this pencil. This pencil is my uniform for when I write.
Or for me, when I hear that, right? I think in terms of the things that you absolutely need, the pillars, if you will, the moorings, the rudder, or rudders, right? And so, for me, when I hear uniform for a vision, absolutely, I know that a vision requires at least these three things: clarity, right? It requires structure, and it requires a system. Now, because you have a system doesn't mean it's structured, right? But so, and I think that's a powerful term. That's a powerful word, right? It's. I think folks need to know that with a vision, there should be some uniformity or a uniform that it's dressed in.
And to me, that just means, like you said, there are the pillars, like your needs, right? So, like, It might not be as simple as, like, okay, I really want this pencil, just a pencil. If I want to write, I need a pencil, right? And if you know that, then I'm pretty sure over time, there are people whose houses I go to, and they have boxes of pencils.
Right.
Those are the people I know that they need one all the time, and they would rather not have that.
Right.
Now, think about that in terms of your life and how many times you try to do something, and your progress is stopped because you don't have the tool. Because you didn't realize what your uniform was before you went and you started to do it. So for me personally, what do you need to do a podcast? A microphone, a phone has a microphone, so like we can keep that really simple, right? But like for me personally, it gave me an area to dive into. It's almost like I use sports a lot, because if I say I want to go to the NBA, I can literally just Google, how do I get into the NBA? Lower level, how do I get better at basketball? How do I get seen by a scout? Now, to me, that sounds like the uniform of success in basketball, because you got to get better, you have to be seen by a scout that's on the team or whatever, and then you get the call. Now, when you understand what your vision is, you don't have to guess the uniform, because success has already been done before. Your job is to, potentially innovate, but you assimilate, then you innovate. So you dive in, and then you figure out where the kinks are or where the gaps are. And so for me personally, that's what that did for me. And I know that what I do now is because most people never get there. That system is daunting. It's overwhelming. When I was trying to figure out what this system was, it was tough for me, and I couldn't really find the help that I needed until I started to create the help. But in order to create it, I had to dive in to mess up and find. And I had to become the gap.
So you became the gap, and I'm not sure that we explored in full how that came to be, but I think it has some of its roots in Cali. So let's go back to Cali. How did you become the gap?
I got called to do things, and in moments where I didn't have time to not think I could do it. So I was put in situations I was not ready for, and I just winged it.
You kept going.
And so a key part of keep going came because, all right, so after that performance, that was the night before I was leaving. So that performance was it's like the last leg of the first part, and this is my first week here. This is really intense, and so now I got to take the rental car back. So I got anxiety about that, about them checking the tire, and then I got to fly to San Francisco because I had booked an adjoining flight to go there because Afrotech was happening of that following week. I did not have a ticket to Afrotech, and I had filled out a media request that they had not responded to, but I decided I was going to show up anyway. So I went to this. Now, mind you, there's so many facets to this story. A year before that, I met somebody on Instagram because I was watching Gary Vee's channel, and he was a black guy, and Gary Vee sat down with a young black guy under 25 and said, "You're doing a good job." And that was literally enough for me to go to his Instagram profile. We have been in touch for the past year, so when I touched down, after I took the flight to San Francisco, also they checked the rental, and they didn't mark down that the tire was messed up. That was crazy. That was crazy. So, literally walked away from the guy that checked the vehicle, just like a movie scene. I hope he doesn't say, "Excuse me, sir." Please don't call my name. I don't have it. I don't have it.
I think we perhaps might have inadvertently given all rental cars listening companies to this podcast another point of checkpoint. They ain't checking tires before. They sure as hell checking tires now. Right?
I made it on the plane. Same amount of money I left with is all that matters. So I get on the plane, touchdown San Francisco, and that guy from Instagram says, "Yo, I see you're in the Bay. What you doing?" I said, "I'm going to Afrotech tomorrow." He said, "Oh, you got a ticket?" I said, "Nah, it's on Faith." He said, "Say less. I'll see you in the morning." Never met him before. We just been on touch digitally over the past year. He picks me up from the hospital that I'm at, and we go. Man, I'm in Cali, and I pull up, and I see all these black people. It's like 300 black people outside waiting to get in. They got videographers and photographers already, so I'm already feeling intimidated. I keep my camera in my pocket. I walk up to the table, and I say, "Hey, my name's Andre. I'm here from Humble Jeans to record." And they're like, "So you got a confirmation?" I'm like, "A confirmation?" So I just play dumb. "A confirmation? We didn't know. I thought you just had to send in an application." Like, so now I'm like, so she's like, "Well, let me go talk to somebody real quick." But she gave me let me go talk to somebody. It was let me go talk to somebody real quick.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds like you're about to go waste 5 minutes before you come back and tell me to leave." So I was like, "All right, well, whoever you talk to, just tell them that I flew here from Philly and I'll do whatever y'all need." She walks away, comes back. "Yeah, if you could just wait outside, we'll just..."
Yeah, we know that.
So I'm outside. So now I'm looking for people in positions of power that are walking through. Anybody that has another connection. I need more points of contact so that eventually there's 5 people that say, "Hey, there's this guy outside." That was my thought. So I keep talking to people. Eventually, I just don't find the right person, and then I see it starts raining. And so the media people that were there, that were already recording now.
Now, hold on. Hold that thought, because I just want to point out. I, by listening to you, I am convinced that you are supposed to be walking this path. And part of how I derived or arrived at that conclusion, who thinks in a moment of true duress, okay, now I just need 5 points of contact. I just need 5 people to be able, who thinks along those lines? Literally. Okay, I'm in this bind, this funk, right? But you know what? If I could just get 5 people to say they know me, I'm gonna be straight. I'll be all right.
How do you shrink the degrees of separation?
Who was thinking about degrees of separation in a legit situation? Mr. Wyze, carry on.